you want to do a little, you can do that.
Okay.
I've got it
No,
pulled up, Tyler.
Literally, no one else is on here but us.
live on a Monday.
This is Under Review at its peakest right here. Birmingham's home for all things football. Under Review starts now.
Champagne, who might be pouring a little bourbon and whiskey and whatnot. Steven, who is your team that is probably popping some champagne this week?
Well, for this week, my champagne is kind of an obvious one. It's got to be Kirby Smart. He finally gets that huge win kind of off his back, over the hump a little bit like that. It kind of gives everybody, oh my gosh, Georgia might actually finally make a championship run here. It's got to feel great if you're Kirby Smart. Just finally get that out of the way, He's obviously won big games before. I know he beat Oklahoma in the playoffs. He got so close to a national championship that same year, but just getting that big win over Clemson just to start off the year has got to be huge for the confidence of his team and himself, and to take him firmly. His seat wasn't hot, but just to take him firmly off the, oh my gosh, is this another Mark Richt we got in Kirby? And then my player or person or team that is sipping a little whiskey this morning, or just after this weekend, it's got to be Ibrahim out of Minnesota. Had that great performance against Ohio State.
He did have a great performance against Ohio State.
He went
That's
off.
True.
For parts of the game, he was Minnesota's entire offense, and then he's out for the season with an injury coming off of that great performance. It could have even been a Heisman type performance. Or shooting up from a Heisman type season. And then he is sadly out.
And that's
for the
huge
season.
loss for Minnesota.
Huge loss.
I totally agree with that.
Minnesota might have been reeling after that loss anyways, but now they lose a huge part of their offense. So he and probably Minnesota in general are drinking a little whiskey this week.
Well, I got to say, bouncing off what you were talking about this weekend, I mean, the teams that are definitely popping champagne, in my opinion, are the FCS schools this week. How about it? Montana tops 20th ranked Washington. Now, you can debate whether or not Washington deserved that 20th ranking or not. ETSU drums Vanderbilt. UC Davis beats Tulsa. And there's some other FCS schools that gave FBS schools some fits. They pushed them around, and there's some games that ended in losses, of course. But I think the FCS schools are the ones that are popping champagne this week. That's going to be my best of the weekend, is the FCS schools getting some dubs over some FBS schools this weekend. And the team that I think it's going from the FCS, who are kind of celebrating, is to a conference that maybe is not celebrating so much, and that's the ACC. This was a weekend to forget for the ACC. There's no other way to cut it. I mean, 7 ACC teams take an L this weekend. I mean, most noticeably at the top, of course, Clemson under Georgia, Miami, and Louisville both were routed by SEC schools as well. FSU falling short of Notre Dame, and then, of course, Georgia Tech and Duke. How about this? Gets beat by Northern Illinois and the 49ers of Charlotte. I mean, just an ugly weekend for the ACC. Just overall, just bad. So they're definitely reaching for that bottle of brandy or whatever. So Tyler, who you got? Who's celebrating this week?
Yeah, we're gonna have Bijan Robinson as our best of the weekend, scoring 2 touchdowns, 170 yards against 23 Louisiana to help Texas win this past weekend. He is a workhorse for this team, guys. This man is a beast. And then just to bounce off of y'all, I would say the FCS teams. This weekend, Montana, like you said, Cole beat number 20 ranked
That's
Washington.
Huge, right?
Yeah, they beat them 13-7. The last FCS team to defeat a top 25 ranked team was North Dakota State in 2016. Wow. Who do y'all think they took down in 2016?
I'm trying to remember. I
remember that game.
I think I've seen that game.
I remember that game.
Number 13 ranked Iowa.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yep.
Tyler, I also saw a stat that Montana apparently has played.
This isn't their first time taking down somebody from the top 25, right? Montana's done this before, haven't they?
No, they beat. Well, I was talking about specifically Washington. I think they've played Washington 18 times, and they're obviously 1-17 against them now. Or they were
they were 0-17. Now they're 1-17.
Well, they were 1-17 actually.
Okay, so they got their second win ever.
Well, their other win was in 1920. So it's been a while
since they have beaten them. Hey, leave a comment on Facebook or wherever you're watching us right now. Tell us what your best and worst of the weekend is. We'd love to get your comments as well if you're following us right now, as well as we'd like for you to like and follow us on all of our social media handles. Steven? He's our social media guy.
Apparently, Under Review 24/7 on Twitter, Facebook, or I guess on Facebook just Under Review. On Instagram, Under Review 24/7. Go like and follow. We'll be posting stuff on there. We'll obviously be posting when we're live, and as soon as we get the podcast out in audio form after today, we will post that on there. And where to find that? You can also find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts under review.
That's awesome. And so we'll roll right in from our best and worst of the weekend, and we'll kind of recap what happened in week number 1.
Okay.
And we'll start with the team right here in our backyard, the UAB Blazers.
Let's
they
go.
faced the Jacksonville State Gamecocks, starting off with a dub. They rolled Jayville 31-0. Tyler Johnson, 17 of 21 for 320 yards and 2 scores. Steven, now, I mean, I know that you can't really get that much from a game like this. I mean, obviously UAB was the much talented team over Jacksonville State. But what can UAB take from this game? Because they're going against some pretty hefty, no pun intended, dogs this week in Georgia. What can you take and build off of a game like Jacksonville State? And what do we see from this team that we were impressed by?
Okay, so a few things. Obviously, Jacksonville State is the FCS team, but they're a pretty good team. They have a 4-year starter at quarterback who's very dynamic. I mean, I think he's going to break all the Jacksonville State records in passing and rushing and everything like that. UAB's defense was I'm sure a lot of people watched the Georgia-Clemson game. Not many people probably watched the UAB JSU game. UAB's defense looked a lot like Georgia's defense in that game, where JSU could do nothing. There was nothing they can do. UAB's D-line just pushed Jacksonville State's line around. It was honestly a really slow start for UAB. They didn't do much in the first quarter, really at all, and you expected them to kind of come out and beat JSU down like immediately, but they didn't. And then as the time went on, I don't know if it was just a more depth for UAB or if they just kind of finally got settled in there, but they really started to put it on them. I'm honestly really excited for this because under Clark, it's always been a really tough defense. The defensive line has always been really good, great DBs and everything like that. And their scoring defense is always in like the top 10 in the country. But with this showing, you finally got to see them air out the ball a little bit more than they typically do.
Absolutely.
Johnston answered the call completely. I know on our previous show last week, I kind of was guessing if it was going to be Brandon Lucero, Tyler Johnston, or Dylan, the other quarterback that ended up coming in at the end of the game. Johnston played really well.
And he looked comfortable. I don't know, thought that it just last year it looked like he was kind of in his sorts, but the offensive line was kind of iffy last year. I think they got a little more experience this year, so they were able to hold. I mean, again, it was Jacksonville State.
Yeah.
And I know they're one of the better FCS schools, especially in their division. I get all that. But UAB looked very polished. The defense looked great. And, I mean, Zarek Cooper and JSU, I mean, 154 yards of offense. I mean, like, that's a pretty good sign. Now, the only thing I will say, the low light for this game was the turnovers.
Yeah.
Because UAB did have 2 turnovers that if you do that against a team like, well, obviously Georgia, but we'll just go ahead and throw that game out. Let's just talk about like teams like Marshall and whatnot.
Right.
You have those kind of turnovers, especially in those big of spots that UAB had. That's going to determine the game for you. You're not going to always beat a team 31-0. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, UAB's always had trouble has had trouble in the last few years with turnovers. It's always been kind of a thing, whether it's interceptions or fumbles. This game it happened to be fumbles. They can't, obviously, like you said, they can't do that against the better teams, and they got away with some stuff, especially early. They didn't execute, to use a Brian Kelly quote there, enough.
Yeah. That's a good quote right there. I like that.
They didn't execute well.
That's still dark, man.
Wow. They didn't execute well enough. But like I said, at least they opened up, and once they got the play action going, I mean, they looked unstoppable offensively, which has never been a thing for UAB to look really good offensively. Even under lesser teams, they've always kind of struggled. Like even last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, playing Alabama State in the first game, they looked bad offensively, especially. So to have that kind of going and getting that play action pass going and getting your tight ends involved who were looking to have a really good year.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was huge for UAB. It was a great warm-up game for Georgia coming to town, or going to Georgia. So it was a great kind of warm-up, getting everybody situated in that. And yeah, I think we can talk about UAB Georgia coming up in a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the next game I kind of want to touch on a little bit is Penn State Wisconsin. It was another big game on Saturday. You had Penn State going to Camp Randall with fans back in the stadium for the first time. You play jump around in that stadium and it goes crazy as always. It's a really hard place to win. But Penn State really, they found a way to win. It was not a pretty game. It was a very Big Ten-esque game where it's a lot of running the ball up the middle and a lot of just hat on hat football kind of thing. But Penn State kind of found a way to win. What did you see from that game that you look forward to maybe in the overall scheme of the Big Ten and just from Penn State and Wisconsin in general?
Well, first of all, I was ecstatic just to see Camp Randall packed out and just see the fans doing the jump around again because, man, that was just weird seeing Camp Randall last year during quarantine where there was no fans in that stadium, and it was just seemed like something was missing. So kudos to that. I mean, that was great to see. But this was a classic slugfest. I mean, I think we all could see that Wisconsin had that defense. I mean, I did not know this until they showed this on the FS1 broadcast. Mm-hmm. But Wisconsin is one of only I think 2 or 3 teams other than Alabama, Ohio State, and I think Clemson one other year that has led defense in multiple different categories over the last 10 years. Wisconsin's defense is legit. Yeah. So the fact that Sean Clifford and this offense for Penn State went into Camp Randall and even did what they did, I was impressed by. Now, look, Wisconsin's offense, yes, there's a lot of holes that are still in that passing game. Wisconsin's never been really known for the passing game except when Russell Wilson was there, obviously. But, I mean, they're always been a ground and pound team. But, man, can we just take a second to appreciate the just gap discipline and the great tackling that was on display during the Penn State-Wisconsin game. I mean, their defense is just played great. I mean, and I know that some people look at that and they're like, oh, man, that was a boring game. I love to watch it. It was great. It was just kind of refreshing because we've been living in such an age of football where it's offense. And I think we're starting to see a resurgence of great defensive play. And it started Saturday with Penn State and Wisconsin.
Yeah, so definitely the first few games looked very defensive. I think part of that came in part with the Iowa just killing Indiana, not letting them score. You had the Georgia-Clemson game, which is obviously the huge game that everybody want to talk about, and it was just a defensive slugfest. And then you had the Penn State-Wisconsin game. That was another ranked game to start off your Saturday slate. So you got a lot of prime time defensive slugfest going there. But honestly, I thought this game was exciting just because they got in the red zone. There were so many chances to score.
That's always a big thing.
There were so many opportunities. So it wasn't like they weren't moving the ball and it was just stagnant all around. It was more of defense made the plays when they needed to kind of game.
Yes.
And that made it really exciting. And Penn State looked pitiful in the first half. And Wisconsin really just kind of they finally put it together obviously in the second half and came back to win. But I thought that was a Wisconsin game to lose. I think they had their opportunities. Obviously, late I think Graham Mertz threw a interception on 4th and goal.
Yes, he did.
At the end of the game.
He did.
So Wisconsin had their chances and just kind of let Penn State, stay in the game long enough to eventually win the game. The other game. So we've got lots of games. So I'm going to try and move a little faster.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Got lots of games from Saturday.
Absolutely.
Huge Saturday slate for the first week of college football.
It was
huge.
There was a lot of good games on Saturday.
I was actually at this game. It was Alabama-Miami that we want to talk about. So obviously going into this game, and they do this every year with Bama a little bit. They kind of hype it up, make Miami look like they're going to be really good, and a lot of people expect Miami to be a lot better team than they were last year and maybe the year before that. You have De'Aaron King coming back from a bad knee injury, but at least he's got another year on the offense. He's at least learning a little bit. Or so that's what we were told before they went into
before Saturday for sure.
Before 2:30 on Saturday. I mean, Bama just dismantled them. It was one of those games where Bama looks like they're unbeatable again. It was one of those that's got to be so disheartening if you're any other team in the SEC or any other team with national championship hopes. It's got to be so annoying to just see Alabama year after year after year do this.
That has been a debate of of interest of lately is how entertaining. I mean, I've seen people talk about this in my small circles. I've seen broadcasts talk about this and talk about the dominance. And most people, appreciate what Saban and what Alabama has done. But it is bad television product because it is. I mean, every time Alabama gets up against a team like this, it's pretty predictable. They're going to win by 30.
Yeah.
So, look, it is what it is. They'll face a team in the next few weeks. I'm sure that will test them. But Miami just wasn't the team. Does that mean Miami's not? Because this is what I love when people do. Everybody hyped up Miami like they were going to be the team that was going to beat Alabama, that they could take them down this game or whatever, or maybe not even hyped them up. Maybe just said they keep it close.
Yeah.
And then as soon as Alabama destroys them, what do they do on Monday? They say, "Oh, well, Miami wasn't any good." Well, they're just a horrible team. That's what we do. So I don't want to knee jerk on Miami. Let's wait and let the season play out and see how good Miami really is. Obviously, they're not on the same level as the top 4 playoff teams or top 6 or however many teams that we think could compete for a playoff. But there's still an FBS school who has talent, and De'Aaron King is no slouch. To hold him and keep him contained like this. Now they do lose Christopher Allen for the season. It looks like the foot fracture is going to hold him back, so that's a big loss for Alabama coming out of that game. This game was 27-0 at one point in the first half. I mean, just not even close at all. I mean, got away from it real quickly from Miami.
I think that defense was as advertised. Everybody expected it to be top 3 in the country, and it looked every bit of top 3 in the
Anderson
country.
Is just you can't block him with
As
one
I
guy.
say,
The amount of pressure he got on the quarterback all game.
Jeez, I mean,
the D line was
astounding.
It starts at the line of scrimmage for the really elite teams, and they were just pushing Miami around both sides of the ball. Obviously, you have Bryce Young, who's setting Alabama records for a starting quarterback, and then he has that escapability that's just so frustrating. It's got to, again, that's one of those things where it's got to be frustrating where Alabama made all their kicks, which is one of Alabama's always you can rely on the kicker to miss some kicks. And then you have a quarterback who you've had athletic quarterbacks in the past with Jalen Hurts and Tua and stuff like that, but you have a quarterback who's athletic, who is looking to throw first.
He can move the pocket and maneuver it a little bit and create
That's got to be
plays
another
whenever
thing
the play
where
breaks down. Exactly.
It's so frustrating for a defensive coach to watch because you're like, man, like last year, Mac
finally
Jones,
have him stopped.
Last year, Mac Jones, at least he's not a mobile quarterback. We can contain him in the pocket, and then he's just destroying you from the pocket. And this year, like maybe Bryce Young is not as accurate, but this year he's just escaping everything. It's got to be so frustrating to watch, and they just.
It's like that meme where that guy goes, "He can't keep getting away with this."
Exactly.
And that's what Alabama is. They just can't.
New year, almost all new assistants for Saban, and it's the same Alabama. So we'll see next week when they play another no-name. I think Mercer, I said another no-name like Miami was a no-name, but,
No,
after that
not a no-name for sure. But,
after that performance, you start to question it. So the other team in the state of Alabama, we'll touch on this briefly because
there's not really much to talk about.
They played Akron, but Auburn.
Right.
I do want to touch on it just because their offense put up 60 points. I mean, anytime your offense, no matter what the opponent is,
no matter if you're going up against air. I mean,
it can be it can be an FCS opponent. It's putting up 60 is big time, especially for an Auburn offense that has struggled in the last few years. Bo Nix sets the record for completion percentage for an Auburn quarterback, so that's huge when you have a quarterback who
wasn't he 19 of 19 at one point before his first incompletion.
He might have. So Cole, did you watch this game at all?
I saw a little bit of it. I mean, obviously you watch the first few drives. I mean, and you've seen the whole game because after that, Auburn starts shuffling in different guys. After they get to a certain point, they'll take out and put their second string guys in and different guys to get
Definitely.
in. But I did see where they had 6 sacks against the Zips on Saturday.
Auburn's defense is what it always is.
That's a good sign.
It looks really good. The thing is, I do want to say that Auburn's offense, obviously putting up 60 is huge. Like, you want to put up 60 no matter what, all the time. That's great. That's good stuff. The only problem I had with Bo Nix having that completion percentage, some of those touchdowns,
they were wide open. I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
they were.
There's nobody around them.
Now, part of that, I don't know if that's Akron just being very bad at coverage, or if the receivers for Auburn are finally going to step up. And
I think it's a combination of the two.
I say it's probably a combination. Just like Miami is probably not as good as everybody hypes them up to be, and Bama's still really good. Kind of that kind of same thing. Akron's not that good, and Auburn's probably receivers are actually putting in work a little bit. So I don't want to get overexcited for Auburn fans. Obviously, it's Akron. I don't think anybody's getting excited. Oh, my gosh, you beat Akron, But it's something to look you're at least happy. You're happy with how the offensive line performed, who's been just,
I think so.
Abysmal. You're happy with Bo Nix actually completing even the wide open stuff. Like, just get him those easy passes to get that confidence built up, because you've got one more kind of warm-up game, and then you go into a very, very dangerous territory. Probably, I think some might consider harder than going into Camp Randall to jump around. You've got a whiteout at Penn State.
Yeah,
in a nighttime primetime
and that's
game.
going to be their next true test, because obviously this week is not going to be their test. They're playing Alabama State, but for Coach Brian Harsin, they came out, they took care of business, and this is what you wanted to see if you're Auburn. You put a team away early, because a criticism for Gus Malzahn is a lot of times they played down to competition at Auburn. They didn't put away teams early, and they went in. They had a business mindset. They did what they had to do. Bo looked very comfortable in the pocket.
Yep.
I thought that Shedrick Jackson had some very good routes and provides a nice deep threat to give Tank Bigsby room to run between the tackles.
Definitely.
So that's going to be huge for Auburn moving forward. So I think just putting some plays on tape and kind of fine-tuning your offense as you get prepared to go to Happy Valley is what's big for Auburn right now.
100%.
And just making sure that you take care of business these next 2 weeks and get nobody hurt.
Right.
That's your big
As
thing.
we talk more and more about this, first week, obviously huge games, and that's great for us as fans. But obviously as a team, most of the time you don't necessarily want to play a team where you're like the Penn State-Wisconsin game.
It's hard to hype your team up.
Well, it's not even hard to hype your team
yeah.
up. I think you want a game like where you play a Mercer, or where you play
right,
an Alabama
yeah.
State, or where
That's
you play
true.
an Akron, whatever
Yeah.
else. You want to be able to play those just so you can get your playbook in. You can get your guys comfortable. You can get your
Absolutely,
freshmen, your
100%.
people who have never played, your transfers, whatever else, comfortable with everything before you go into those environments where it's hard.
Unless you're Washington, who thought that you were going to do that with Montana,
Exactly.
and then Montana ends up beating you.
Well,
so.
that's why, you want to schedule those, because at least now. You play a
Yeah,
team.
right.
You play a team like Oregon, you might get blown out. At least you
Yeah.
play a Montana, and it's still a bad loss, but you know where they're at now. At
It's
least.
still a bad loss, but it's okay.
Yeah. So the another game I want to talk about is obviously the biggest game from Saturday, in I think everybody's opinion, Clemson and Georgia.
Yeah.
So you watch this game, everybody's hyping it up all day long. I mean, it's a top 5 battle in the first week of college football. Has playoff implications, has SEC versus ACC. What is Clemson going to look like with a new quarterback after the Trevor Lawrence era? What is Georgia going to look like in another year with JT Daniels after they actually showed some offensive capability last year? Georgia's got maybe the best defensive line. Can Clemson shore up their offensive line? The short answer is no. Georgia's defensive line pushed them around. It was absolute defensive slugfest. This was reminiscent of an LSU-Alabama game back in
The
2006
game?
2011. It was one of those where, Clemson didn't get past the 50-yard line for
Right.
most of the game.
Yeah, it was bad. And now look, this was the question I had written down in my notes. I said, was this more about Georgia's defense or Clemson's offense? Tyler, I'd be interested to see what you have to say about that. I mean, you look at DJ. I'm gonna call him DJU because I don't know if I can pronounce his name correctly.
Ukulele, right?
He was sacked 7 times, and the leading rusher for Clemson was one of their running backs. They had 10 yards.
Yeah.
10 yards of rushing.
Well,
that's
they had 2 net yards.
Yeah. That's insane. So Tyler, was this more about the ineptness of Clemson's offense or more so about Georgia's defense?
I think DJ Ugalele, I think he's just not as hyped up as people make it out to be. And I think it is a combination of the offensive line of Clemson not being that good and the combination of Georgia having a great defensive line.
Absolutely.
What would you lean more towards? Georgia's defensive line being great or Clemson's offensive line?
I think that Georgia's defensive line is by the end of the
I was
year.
gonna say,
I think by the end of the year they're probably going to be looked at as the best defensive line this year. But
and
I also
Clemson's
think
offensive line is going to get better.
They're going to get better.
They got plenty of weeks. And let me just say this. The schedule plays out for Clemson because while this loss is going to be hard for them because now that was Clemson's big game. Where are you going to make up your ground as far as resume games? Clemson really has no room for error the rest of the season until they get to the college football playoff. There is nobody left on Clemson's schedule.
So the problem, too, for Clemson anyways, is that even if they win out, they might still get beat out by a 2-loss team because everybody else that they could kind of rely on a little bit if they don't meet them in the regular season to meet them in the championship game lost.
Because they don't play North Carolina in the regular season, correct?
North Carolina lost, and they don't play Virginia Tech in the regular season.
And they don't play Virginia Tech.
One game that you could argue that probably the team that looked best in the ACC that lost this weekend was Florida State.
Yes,
They did.
For
They
sure.
did.
And we can,
Hey, great transition.
as I say, we can go ahead and hop
Wow.
into that game because
What a transition.
it was a great game for a Sunday night kind of standalone game. You normally have NFL, but no NFL this week, so you get a great college football game. Not many people know what FSU was going to look like. I don't think the odds makers thought FSU was going to be as bad because I think it was only a 7.5 point spread.
Doghouse team, by the way.
There you go, Cole. So FSU looks much better. It looks like they can contend for second place in the ACC, honestly, at this point, because North Carolina lost. Virginia Tech didn't. I mean, they looked good against North Carolina, but how bad is North Carolina this year? Miami looked pitiful against Alabama.
Yeah.
FSU was the only team that put on a really good performance. I think my main takeaway from this game, I got two main takeaways. Jack Cohn looks like he steps right in for Ian Book. It looks like you're not missing a beat with him. He played
He looks
great.
good.
He actually set the record for most yards in a season opener in Notre Dame history. The previous record was held by Tommy Rees in 2013. If you know who that is.
Tommy Rees. How about Tommy Rees?
I think if you're Florida State going forward, you have to start Mackenzie Milton, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you throw the 3 interceptions with Travis, and you put Milton in, and it's a great story for one. Everybody got hyped up. He leads them on that drive at the end of the game. You got to start him. You got to start him for the rest of the season. If nothing else, just
Come on,
for the
Mackenzie
story.
Milton?
Yes, you have to start him. The offense hummed better. It hummed better.
It looked a lot better.
And I will say that Notre Dame's defense
was it not just like movie script? I mean, this guy literally comes off because he gets his helmet knocked off, and Mackenzie Milton comes in and leads the drives that ties the game. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
I mean, it
was awesome.
It's
to
Alex
watch.
Smith in the NFL, where
So
he's not going to
funny.
walk again, and then
Wow.
he goes plays. I will say that Notre Dame's run defense looks really bad, and their rush attack is not good either. It was all Jack Cohn throwing the ball, which, I mean, at least
That's
Notre
true.
Dame, if nothing else, you have people to throw it to. You have good tight ends and everything else. But, man, their run game on both sides of the ball needs a lot of work.
But of course, they lose the game because of a kicker. I
Yes.
mean, is there anything more demoralizing than and of course Alabama fans and Auburn fans? I mean, I'm sure all fans, but especially Alabama fans know losing because of a kicker is just such a low blow.
It's a
It
heartbreak.
is such a hard pill to swallow when a guy who, I mean, even though they're a part of the football team, I get that, but they don't block, they don't catch, they don't do anything really. All they do is just kick. So when you lose because of a kicker, it's just the worst. But can FSU have the moral victory trophy of the week? Are they capable of having that?
I mean, I think so. You had the tribute to Bobby Bowden kind of this weekend in college football because he passed away. I believe it was earlier last month. So you kind of have that tribute, and then FSU kind of puts on a really, really good performance on a Sunday. Obviously, you want the win, but I think if you're going to lose a game and you're as Florida
but
State,
a good game for Mike Norvell in his first game.
this is a great way to lose it. I guess. I mean, it sucks.
A great way to lose.
As I
That's
say,
a good
that's
way to put it. I like that.
But
A great way to
if you could
lose it.
hope for a loss or
You were
hope for-
competitive.
yes,
You did not get blown out because right there when it turned to an 18-point advantage, Mike Norvell's squad could have easily just laid down and just took the beating. But
Yeah,
they did. They came
so let's
back
talk
and-
about a team that did take a beating.
Yeah.
A little
Another
bit.
ACC school.
I'm gonna kind of go off a little bit. Not another ACC school, but an SEC school took a beating this weekend, and that's gonna be LSU.
Oh, okay.
Playing
Changing up a little bit. Okay.
I'm going off the rail here a little bit.
Okay.
Because I just wanted to talk about that was bad coaching. It was just bad coaching. I mean, UCLA looks great. They look like they're on a surge with Chip Kelly coming up here, but I mean, it was poor tackling. It was LSU changing up offensive plays at the last second of the line of scrimmage with a new quarterback. It's not okay. If you have a new quarterback, you should already have to play. You should have the play as soon as the next situation comes up. Give him that play. Let him get lined up. Let everybody figure it out with this a new offense coordinator, a new quarterback. The defense wasn't lined up half the time. It's just it was just a poor coach game by LSU, which is what if you're a coach, you cannot have a poor coach game. You can have things go wrong, but if you're, I mean, we're looking at a Gene Chizik-esque performance going on here. We're looking at you win the national title.
I was about to say,
you go
this is-
undefeated. You have one season where you kind of have a down year. It's a COVID year. Everybody's kind of, you don't know what's going on. That's okay.
Coming
You
off
kinda-
the national championship
you
season.
get a miss year there, but then you come off the second season and you come off, and that was the one thing you can't do is lose to a Pac-12 team that's kind of surging at the right moment. You cannot lose that game. And Coach O coming back out and then blaming his assistants for not having the team prepared is just even worse.
I will raise you this one, Stephen. Now LSU, not that I want to use this as an excuse, but LSU did have to kind of change their scheduling as far as their preparation for this game because of the hurricanes. They weren't able to practice on a normal schedule. They had to practice, of course, in Houston, and then of course move to out to LA eventually for the end of the week for the game. So they did have a little bit of their thing, but I don't think that would have affected the game as much as it did because, I mean, UCLA was up by a large margin before LSU got that late score to make it that 10-point game. But this was one of those games where I really felt like LSU went in there thinking that the Pac-12 was the softer conference team, that they weren't going to have as much of a ground pound type of play. But Chip Kelly and this team has had a very sharp mindset coming in this season that they are going to win the line of scrimmage. And that's what UCLA did all night long against LSU. They won the line of scrimmage. And LSU, let's face it, the last 2 years, they haven't done that.
No.
They have not looked like a complete team. The defense hasn't looked good for years. The offense, I mean, the year they won the national championship with Joe Burrow, of course, the offense was electric. But let's not act like that was a dominant defense.
No.
This defense has not been good for a while, and they have not improved, I would say, almost not at all from last year. It still looks like that same bad defense from last year.
And we saw in 2019, Cole, that how great, like, Clyde Edwards-Helaire opened up that offense in the rushing attack.
Absolutely.
Opened it up for Burrow, right, and everything.
It kept the defense off the field, too.
Exactly. In 6 of the last 11 games, LSU's rushed for under 100 yards. And you just can't do that to win games.
They're not winning line of scrimmage on either side of the ball. Teams are running it down their throats, and LSU is not able to control line of scrimmage. So you're putting your defense on the field more. That's already not that great. And it's not like LSU's not getting those dudes.
No,
so
I was about to say, I think
the issue?
Well,
What is the issue?
I was about to say, I think the most concerning thing is that you have the athletes to be an elite team. You're getting the recruits. You have Derek Stingley, who's arguably the best defensive player in the country on your defense.
Absolutely.
You should at least be able to do something. Obviously, you caught lightning in a bottle with Joe Burrow and that 2019 team, right?
Real quick before we move on, is UCLA? Are we getting on the train? Do we think that Chip Kelly and UCLA is going to be the best team in the Pac-12 at the end of the season? You have UCLA, Oregon, and Utah. Those are the 3 teams that I would say would probably be vying for that spot. And I'm almost prepared to jump on the Bruins bandwagon.
Give me another week.
I'm almost there.
Yeah. Give me another week.
I would also give me another week because we don't know much about Oregon. They did not look good last week, guys.
So maybe after we find out something about Oregon Saturday against Ohio State,
I want to figure out what happens in the Oregon-Ohio State game before I'm ready to.
So we're not jumping just yet.
I was going to say, we can get into that in a second. I do want to touch on just like 2 more games here real quick before we move on to our week 2 games coming up because I do want to preview all those games and because we do have. Believe it or not, we do have
there is some good ones.
There is still some good games. We do come off that week 1 that is just insane. I don't know if we'll top that for the rest of the year, but we do have some good games coming up. But before we move on, I do want to talk about just Ole Miss on the Lane train coming here.
Oh man, Joey Freshwater.
They beat Louisville. They played good. Without Lane Kiffin, what do we think of Ole Miss? Are they going to live up to the hype this year? Because a lot of people have them as the 3rd best team in the West.
Yeah,
a lot of the and the SEC West.
And they probably are, especially after watching the way LSU played. Ole Miss might be that. Look, I don't know if this is telling of how good Ole Miss is or how bad Louisville is. Again, that's just like with Alabama and Miami. We'll have to let the season play out. All we know is that Ole Miss can move the football, and they're not just doing it through the passing game. They're doing it because, fun fact for you guys, do you know who led the SEC in rushing last year?
Who's that?
It was Ole Miss. Common to popular belief, everybody thinks that Alabama, Auburn, or somebody or Georgia's going. It was Ole Miss who led the SEC in rushing last year, and they're picking up right where they left off. But the biggest storyline from this game was not actually the gameplay, and I hate when this is the subject. But targeting and the officials crept into. I saw it on Steve Head on the storyline, and he's right. 4 ejections for targeting in the first half of this game.
They were so close to. I don't know if you saw them. They were almost
gosh.
They were almost like back to back to back like drives and plays and stuff like that. I mean It was a couple of them were just like, kind of those bang plays where it's just like, oh my gosh. So like 2 of them were like that, and the other 2 were
one was like for sure, I believe, targeting, but the other ones were borderline. I mean, like borderline shouldn't even have been a penalty call. Tyler, are we getting closer to knowing what the definitive definition for targeting, or are we getting further away from the call?
We're getting further away.
That's what I think too.
Honestly.
I mean, I think that, and I don't know if you agree with me on this, Steven, but I think there should be kind of like a flagrant system like there is in basketball, where there should be like a targeting 1 and targeting 2 call, or a flagrant 1, flagrant 2 call, because this throwing guys out of a whole game or for a second half and first half is just too much for these borderline calls. I just do not agree that we should just all of a sudden just go look at a booth and say, because this guy did X or because this guy did this, there's too much gray area with this call. Whereas with a holding call or a pass interference, I can look at the play most of the time and I can say, yeah, that's interference. I mean, the guy grabbed his arm, or this did this. There's too much, well, it's his intent. His intent was to lead with his helmet, or his intent was to hit him while he was a defenseless receiver. There's too much gray area to this, and I think they definitely need to look over the offseason and look into this a little more.
So I think that's a good idea to have that targeting 1, targeting 2, kind of like you have flagrant fouls almost. I think that's a good idea. But, and you kind of mentioned at the end there, I think this is one of those penalties where just intent matters so much, and you don't know a player's intent really. You can kind of guess from the play, but when it matters this much to somebody staying in the game or not, obviously it's impossible to tell intent unless you're the person. So I think that's probably the best way to go with it. I don't think they will. I think they're going to stick with it and just stick with the replay system they have in place.
That's what it's going to be.
I think it will, just because they, I think when they have the replays, more often than not, when they replay it and everything like that, which I think they do every time.
How many times have we honestly see them go to the booth and review it and then overturn it? I mean, it does happen. Very few times.
It's few, but it does happen. It's because
they almost always agree with the officials on the field.
Let's put it this way: and if they don't do the kind of flagrant 1, flagrant 2 thing with targeting, they need to change the wording of the rule. Because the wording of the rule is just kind of like any contact almost with helmet to helmet.
It's too vague.
I mean, you're playing a contact sport where you're going to hit people.
Yes,
your
absolutely.
helmets are going to connect every now and then.
Right.
So let's move on to a hat-on-hat game. That was supposed to be a hat-on-hat game, I guess, anyways. Iowa and Indiana. So
now remember who you took last week, Steven. Don't go back now. We can go retrace the film. Remember me and Tyler talked you into taking the Hoosiers.
Okay, I was about to say.
We talked you into it. We said be different, and you took them.
Taking Indiana?
You took Indiana. You picked Indiana.
I forgot about that.
We picked the teams.
I forgot about that.
Because remember we were debating on who if we knew anything about it, and I knew at least who Iowa's head coach was.
Yeah, that's fair.
I at least knew that.
I don't know how I forgot Michael Penix Jr. I don't know how you forget that. Or it's like their receiver's name. He has a weird name.
Oh,
it's like
sure.
Fry something.
I'm sure.
Anyways, Iowa dominated this game. I think it was what we kind of said, coming into this game. We didn't know a lot about either team. I said that you think of Iowa as smash mouth football.
And that's exactly what they did.
They are smash mouth football.
Exactly
that was a perfect description of that game. I think that Indiana's kind of had one of those almost lightning in a bottle years last year where they had a lot of turnover luck. They had that play at the end of I think it was an overtime to beat Penn State, on that diving touchdown play. So you had a lot of that going on with Indiana, but Indiana shot themselves in the foot a lot. They shot themselves with 2 pick sixes. In Iowa, honestly, I don't know if they didn't want to. They were conservative. They probably were conservative because they knew they were stopping Indiana.
That's Kirk Ferentz's style of play.
He is a
more conservative
coach.
They've never been an aggressive.
They love their fullbacks
team.
and their fullbacks and their tight ends are just like you have to have good ones.
They
for
are
Iowa.
The typical I formation, cornbread-fed boys.
They're grinded up. They're smash mouth football, and Indiana just couldn't hang.
Yes.
I mean, Indiana honestly moved the ball a little bit, but those pick sixes killed them.
Well, Iowa better get ready because they have a really good matchup here in week 2.
And that's why I wanted to do that game last in our recap, because I wanted to move on to our week 2 games here coming up. So I wanted to first touch on the big game, the one that College Game Day is at, or I guess one of the big games. The game that College Game Day is at. You have Iowa going to Iowa State. Now,
the battle for the Cy-Hawk Trophy.
Exactly. The Cy-Hawk Trophy. Iowa's number 10. Iowa State's number 9. It's a top 10 meeting, which you almost never have between these two teams. Iowa State goes into the game as a 4.5-point favorite, even after they really struggle with Northern Iowa coming to there. Now, Kirk Ferentz has absolute bodied Matt Campbell in their 4 meetings.
Bodied him. I like that.
I say bodied like it wasn't close, but I mean he's 4-0 against Matt Campbell.
Yeah.
So it's so good for Iowa State to have this game at home. I think that Iowa State teams typically start off really slow. That's one of the reasons they didn't look good.
Yeah, they win 16-10 over Northern Iowa.
Yeah,
week
16-10.
One. It was an awful.
So
awful
I think part of it was that you had one of those cases where they're looking ahead
Brock
to Iowa.
Purdy didn't start the game off good either. So I mean,
he
was kind of
didn't.
slow.
Iowa State, they couldn't get Breece Hall going. They were trying to run too much just up the middle. I think they were trying to go into it with just such a basic game plan, just kind of one of those warm up, get hits a little bit, but win the game easy against Northern Iowa going into that big game against Iowa. I think this game comes down to who wins the line of scrimmage.
So who do you like?
If it comes down to the line of scrimmage game, I think you gotta go towards Iowa, don't you think? More physical team up front.
I'm gonna stay with you, Tyler. And I'm gonna say that yes, I look at what Iowa was able to do on defense and running the football against Indiana versus what Iowa State did against a very inferior opponent in Northern Iowa. And I'm going to go with Kirk Ferentz's squad and say they're the better team, and I'll take Iowa 24-20 over the Cyclones.
That's not a bad pick at all. I think this game can go either way. I think the line of scrimmage winning when Iowa has the ball is very important too, because Iowa State has a good defensive line and Iowa has a good offensive line. So I think that'll be the real battle to watch there. Right. I also think it's a good game to watch too. Running back stars and Tyler Goodman. He had a great game against Indiana.
Yeah, he did.
He was running all over the place. They were using him like crazy. And obviously you have Breece Hall in Iowa State. I think they need to get him the ball on the edges, get him out in space, and let him make people miss because he's so good at that. Don't just
elusive back.
Don't do the basic, halfback dive plays up the middle. Get him out towards the sideline. Let's see what he does. I think home field is just going to be huge in this game.
So you're going to take the Cyclones.
I think Campbell finally beats Ferentz. I think Iowa just doesn't have that.
So Tyler, you're on
two
Iowa.
Pick sixes. I have 27-24 Iowa State.
27-24. Steven says Iowa State. Tyler, you're on Iowa, correct?
I'm on Iowa. Do I think Iowa State has better offense? Yes. Do I think Iowa is more physical? Yes. So I think that's going to come down to this game.
Physicality wins. I like
and
that.
Time of possession.
I
give
like
me
that.
24-17 type of game, Iowa.
I think that Iowa State doesn't throw two pick sixes, so that's why I have Iowa State.
They don't gift Iowa 2 scores, right?
That's what Indiana was just
saying.
That'd
be good. That'd be good if you do that.
Indiana was saying, "How can we help you score?
How can we help you?
What can we do for you, sir?" So let's go into the other big game from this weekend. We have Oregon traveling to Ohio State. Oregon's ranked number 12. Ohio State's number 3. Ohio State is a 14.5 point favorite.
That's a lot of points to be playing against. To be hosting
so
Oregon.
I think that a big part of this game will come down to, is Kayvon Thibodeau healthy? Will he play in this game? Because I watched
that's big.
I watched some of that Oregon Fresno State game
Oregon.
when Kevin Thibodeau was on the team. When he was playing on the field, that defensive line was completely different. It was two different animals. When he's on the team, even if he doesn't do anything, he has such a huge influence on the double teams on him. It just changes their defensive line. The DBs have to be so much tighter in coverage with Olave and Wilson just constant threats to them.
Oh, yeah.
They cannot let – they were letting Fresno State have 5 yards of cushion going against them. I think maybe Oregon was probably having another one of those, like I just said with Iowa State, where they're looking forward to next week. They have to be better. They have to be better than Minnesota's pass defense was too. Their rush defense, that is. They have to be better. I think they have a good.
Were you impressed with C.J. Stroud last week, Steven? Because I gotta say he turned it around in the second half, but there were some question marks in the first half. I personally think that Oregon's more talented to win this, more than enough talented to win this game. But I think the pass rush getting to Stroud early is going to be the key factor for Oregon. If they're not able to get to him, he might have a similar game like Minnesota, where it might be that slow start and Oregon hangs around, but they just eventually pull away there in the second half.
Right.
And that's where I have it kind of going, and I think it's going to be 34-24. I think the Buckeyes win in Columbus. I don't think they cover. I think 14.5 points is a lot of points. Maybe too much for this game.
That is
still early. C.J. Stroud is still kind of getting his footing in this offense. You saw the glimpses of how he can get the ball to Olave and Wilson and whatnot, and that's going to be key. Mayan Williams, I think, is going to be big for Ohio State, kind of opening up that and taking some of the pressure off Stroud running the football. But I mean, at the end of the day, I just think, I mean, the Buckeyes are the better team and the home field advantage and whatnot. So I'll take the Buckeyes 34-24.
Ohio State's definitely the better
Ducks.
team. I think C.J. Stroud's got to be more efficient. I think they need to start him out with those easy completions with Olave and Wilson. Just get them out in space, maybe bubble screens, maybe just quick slant routes. Because they went off firing, and that's what Ryan Day likes to do. I don't know if you heard Stroud after the game. He was like, Coach just told me in the second half, hey, just keep firing, keep firing.
Just keep shooting.
Let's
That's
just
what he
keep
said,
shooting. So I think if the D-line generates pressure on Anthony Brown, the Oregon's quarterback, and he can't have those rushing plays that he does as well, I think Ohio State can dominate this game if that happens. But I think if Kayvon Thibodeau is healthy, I think that can really, really change the outcome of the game. I think Ohio State wins, but it does not cover.
Yeah, I think it's got to be closer. I mean, I think 14.
I think if Kayvon Thibodeau is not healthy, though, Ohio State might run away with the game.
We'll see. We'll see on
Tyler,
Saturday.
what you got?
I like Oregon to cover for sure. I think they have the speed on the defensive end to kind of keep up with Ohio State, at least for the first 2 quarters. But I kind of see Ohio State pulling away, like y'all both said. I think 14.5 slot points. So I think Oregon.
At the end of the day,
cover.
they're probably the deeper squad. I mean, I think Oregon. I think Mario Cristobal is going to get that program in the right direction, and they have been for years. Oregon is definitely a competitive team. They're no slouch, but they're just not Ohio State. You know, Ohio State's one of the blue bloods, and they have the dudes, and Oregon's still working on getting the dudes.
Oregon's getting there. They just gotta put it together. I mean, this would be a huge. This would be a huge win. It's going to be a great game to watch. This would be a huge win for the Pac-12 and Oregon in general. So let's go into another game that we kind of touched on a little bit, but I do want to kind of go on a deeper dive in what we think can happen and what we think they need to do to win. UAB going to Georgia. Obviously, Georgia coming off a huge win.
Right. Yeah.
So the line has moved down. I don't know if y'all have been watching the line for this game continuously. It started
How much
at 20.
could it possibly have moved down?
So it started at 29, went down to 27, and now it's at 24.5.
Are you kidding me?
So the reason it keeps going
down 5 points.
The reason it keeps going down is because there have been 3 or 4 players, they won't announce who have been designated.
The spike of COVID. For the Georgia player. Yeah,
Georgia's had a spike of
That's
COVID.
That's a huge story. I'm about to say that.
Another story that came out today is that JT Daniels may not play in this game because he has a rib injury. Now, he has not practiced yet at all this week.
Wow.
So he's very questionable for the game coming up. I think that one of the line of scrimmage, obviously, I've said it every single game, but you get a reminder after week 1 of how important to winning the line of scrimmage is to a game in general. UAB has one of the best offensive lines, especially run blocking in the country. Obviously, Georgia has arguably the best D-line in the country, so that'll matter a lot.
Absolutely.
UAB needs to just take advantage of the lack of experience in Georgia's defensive backs. Johnston has to look for his tight ends, bubble screens, spread out the defense as much as possible. Don't let Georgia just pin their ears back and blitz like they did against Clemson, because you'll get tricked into making those quick decisions. That's what happened to DJ, where he threw those picks. You can't do that. Will UAB allow Johnston time to let those deep plays develop, let that play action develop? Because I think that will be a huge part of UAB's offensive scheme in general, because it worked so well against Jacksonville State.
Right.
I don't think it will. I think Georgia's offense will.
I mean, look, it's a lot to. I mean, it's a lot to kind of unfold here. But I mean, let's just be honest. I'm just going over what UAB has to do to win, basically. Covering the local team here for UAB. I mean, we want to be optimistic for UAB, but going in this game, you just want to try and be competitive and try and get your guys better against some better athletes and some better competition. I mean, so at the end of the day, you said the line's down to 24.5. Is that what you said?
It was 24.5 when I looked this morning.
I mean, look, well, I definitely think Georgia's going to cover that point. I mean, I would definitely take the 24. I cannot believe it has gone down. But, I mean, I guess if JT Daniels doesn't play, that does change the game for Georgia a little bit.
If JT Daniels doesn't play,
if those 3 or 4 players that are undisclosed are, significant contributors
that's going to be huge.
Dogs.
I think that Georgia's offense will still play really conservatively again. So I think that's one of the reasons they don't have it as a super high line.
So I want to mention this because he told me I had to do this. So Matthew Landrum is a big UAB and Dogs fan, and he is making a bet with me. He told me multiple times he doesn't think there's any way that Georgia scores over 40 points against UAB. Over 40.
Okay.
And I sat there and I said, Matt, as good as Georgia is, I said, and even though UAB is good too, don't get me wrong, but are you kidding me? You don't think they're going to at least score? I have Georgia scoring about 44 points, 44-17 or 44-14.
Well, Cole, you are going way, unless you have a shutout going here, you are going way on the over here because the over-under set at 46.
No. He said Georgia just scoring 40.
I know.
Not over on just scoring.
I know.
40.
I'm telling you, if you have Georgia scoring 44, then you're going for the over there, unless you expect
I'm definitely going
a
the
shutout.
over. I mean, come on. Georgia scoring 40 points.
46 is so low that I might take the under. It's so low. It's going to be a defensive slugfest. You already know UAB has arguably the best defense in non-Power 5, and Georgia has a best defense.
But
I'm going under 46.
I get it. I get UAB has a great defense.
I'm going under 46.
But it's in the realm of the Conference USA. This is the SEC. This is a Power 5 school.
This going
team
under
just
46.
held Clemson, the best team in the ACC, to 3 points. I mean, and so UAB is going to keep this game close, you think?
I think that, so this is what I have my prediction as. UAB covers the spread, but gets put to bed early. In other words, that at no point is UAB going to be within winning, but they are going to cover the spread.
So Tyler says that we have a question on YouTube. Tyler, what is the question, and from whom is it?
Luke Saxon asked, Pitt or Tennessee line at 3.5.
Okay,
going towards Pitt.
So I want to hold off on that right there. That's a great question because we will answer that later in the show. But we will get to that shortly because we are going to touch on Pittsburgh and Tennessee. But just hold on. We are definitely getting to that game though. But that's a great question because that is a tricky line up in Rocky Top. But we'll definitely save that because I got something good for that later. But keeping on the Georgia and the UAB talk here, I mean, there's just no way, Steven. There's no way that Georgia's not score 40. And I don't see any way of UAB scoring over 20 points.
Let's put it this way: if JT Daniels doesn't play, if JT Daniels does not play, and UAB and Georgia plays,
who Georgia has,
and Georgia plays the conservative game that I know they're going to play, there's no chance they score 40.
I just don't see it.
So you're saying that, like, you know, Vegas doesn't know? Vegas always knows.
I'm not saying that Vegas doesn't know.
Vegas always knows.
I'm saying that Vegas might have pushed that line to try and encourage more betting. I'm just saying that could have been the case.
Yeah, but wouldn't everybody take the over? Wouldn't Vegas lose if they push that line so far down?
I'm just, we see this all the time, guys. We see this all the time where we think this is just way too predictable for this to happen. For this to happen for UAB, this is just way too predictable, and there's just I just don't see any way. Maybe I'm, as a person who lives in Birmingham, it would be absolutely awesome if UAB went over there and kept it competitive for 2 quarters. I'm just saying, I just don't see it. I don't see it anyway.
My prediction isn't UAB to win. My prediction is just to cover the 24.5. So that could be 21. I mean, that could be 20. It could be 24. They could be 24, but they won't. They will not cover. Georgia will not cover that spread, and I think it goes most likely under 46.
I rest my case. 44-17. Georgia wins.
Way over then. If you're with Cole, with Cole, smash the over. If you're with me, smash the under. Okay. Let's decide. Let's figure that out.
Leave your comments below on Facebook, YouTube. Tell us what you think about between Georgia and UAB. Does Georgia cover, or does UAB somehow hit that line and inside 24? Do they keep it closer than 24 points? I have the over. Tyler, what say you?
I'm gonna say under. I'm with Steven on this one.
I just don't see this, guys. You guys are with Matt. Did y'all collude with Matt on this or something?
No.
What's going on here?
I have not talked to Matt Landrum.
Wow. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll be the one different guy here. I'll take Georgia to cover, but UAB still improves mightily and make some strides against Georgia and show some improvement. Of course, this is a chance for UAB to do some things too.
Hey, it'll be, if nothing else, I'm hoping that it will be competitive for a half, and then at least UAB will look good. That's what I'm hoping for.
Fair enough.
Let's touch on another game that has SEC. Arguably, you could say a SEC conference game. You could eventually. They have future SEC conference game. They're old rivalry from the Southwest Conference days. You have Texas at Arkansas. So this is gonna be.
I love this game.
I was about to say, so this is gonna be a very interesting game. You get to see where Arkansas is at a little bit, and Sam Pittman. They got a scare in their game. They pulled away.
Close.
Rice is not a good team.
Rice took them to the brink.
They pulled away in the fourth quarter, and they ended up covering the spread. Believe it or not, Arkansas has not.
I'm sure the spread wasn't that much. It couldn't have been.
I think it was
Arkansas.
17.
Yeah,
I think it was 17. But they covered somehow, some way. They were down in the fourth quarter, and they still covered. That
resiliency by the Hogs.
Yeah, Texas looked great in the first game under Sark. I mean, it was what you expected it to be under Sarkisian. He used Bijan
Every
Robinson.
position, every formation you could think
And
of.
he used Bijan Robinson. Stop me if you've heard this before. Bijan Robinson is really, really good.
He's really good. He's a huge factor for Texas. Stop me if you heard
Hudson
this before.
Card played especially well for a freshman going against honestly a really good Louisiana team, a really good non-Power 5 Louisiana team who was only ranked 2 under Texas, so it wasn't like a huge disparity there.
Right.
What do you have in this game?
So, I mean, look, Arkansas has actually won the previous 4 of 6 meetings between Texas, and I mean, that shocked me, first of all. I couldn't believe that.
Wow.
Look, Arkansas needs to really control the line of scrimmage and keep this a low-scoring game for sure. I personally like Texas to win. They proved themselves against better competition in week 1. Arkansas kind of struggled. I don't think Arkansas is on the talent level of Texas, and I think Sarkisian will score just enough points, and it'll get kind of away from Arkansas. I don't think they can score 30-plus points, so if Texas scores over 30, I think they win this game. So I have it somewhere about 35-24. I'm not sure what the line is, but I got the Longhorns winning 35-24 in Fayetteville.
It's Texas by 7 is the line.
Well, I definitely have them covering them.
Yeah, I have Texas handles Arkansas. Honestly, I think they handle them. I think it continues on the latest Texas back run, and we have Texas by 15.
All right. Tyler?
I like that, Steven. I think Texas runs away with this one and wins by more than 15.
So Tyler, I'm going to point this out because you're agreeing with me, and I love it. What was your betting record from last weekend?
2-0 last week.
2-0.
Hey,
5-1 on college football.
Hey,
5-1.
Full-time producer,
Overall.
part-time bookie. I'm just telling you, this guy is on a mission this year. He's on a mission. He's 2-0 already for the season.
All right, so let's touch, since we got a question about it, let's touch on Pitt and Tennessee. What are you looking for out of Tennessee in this game, and what do you have in this game? Because I feel like this is a weird game. Like
Well,
I don't know what
Steven?
I don't know what to make of it.
I am really glad that this question was asked, and I'm really glad you throw it to me because I'm going to go ahead and do this early because this is my doghouse pick for the week is the Tennessee Volunteers. They're underdogs
Nice.
at home in Neyland Stadium this week. Not against the Pittsburgh Steelers, not against the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Panthers of Pittsburgh. And I think that with that rushing attack that they piled up last week, I know it was against Bowling Green, 300 yards on the ground. Everybody's going to say, but Cole was against Bowling Green. It was against nobody. They looked more like an improved football team under first-year head coach Josh Heupel, and I think he'll take a little bit of pressure off his quarterback, who didn't perform that great last week, but I think they'll take control of the game. It's at home, and I think by when it's all said and done Saturday night, the Smokies will be ringing out loud Rocky Top as the Vols win 26-24 over the Panzers of Pitt. The line is 3.5 towards Pitt. And I'm going to take the Volunteers. That's my dog this week.
You know what, Cole?
That's going to get the dub.
You know what, Cole? Your dog won last week, so I will go with you.
I'm telling you, the Knowles covered for us. Pitt and Pittsburgh better watch out because the dogs this week are the Vols. So I got them.
Awesome. I love it. So we won't really touch on them. We'll just go over Auburn's playing Alabama State. Another warm-up game for Penn State going into Happy Valley coming up. Not this weekend, but next weekend. And then you have Mercer going to Bama. This is a tune-up game from Florida. The only question I have for this, and you don't, rhetorical question.
Rhetorical question.
Well, we got to move on to NFL. Will Jaleel Billingsley actually see the field in this game?
Absolutely. Oh, for sure. No.
So Cole says definitely.
Absolutely.
So let's move into our NFL preview because we had a full kind of slate of college football this weekend. We get NFL back this coming weekend.
Yes.
Finally. So Cole, I know we each have a team. So before we touch on the games this week coming up, before we touch on any new faces and new places we want to talk about, before our Super Bowl picks for this season, how do you see your Saints doing with the new QB?
You want to start with me? Okay. All right. Well, here we go. So, look, the Saints, we're obviously replacing our beloved Drew Brees. I mean, so Jameis Winston takes over. My expectations for this season is just, I do think that the Saints are going to get to double-digit wins. I think that they'll get to 10 wins. 10-7 will be their record by the end of the year, which will be Jameis Winston's first double-digit win year in his entire career in the NFL. I didn't know that until I looked it up. The most he's won is 9.
Wow.
So I think Jameis Winston does get to 10 wins. I think Alvin Kamara will get close to 2,000 yards and maybe can get the NFL rushing record this year or for this season or lead the league in rushing.
So over Derrick Henry, Ezekiel Elliott.
I think that Alvin Kamara will finally be able to flourish just because they had that deep threat, because Drew Brees kind of held them back because he wasn't able to push the ball deep. I think that'll open the ball up for Alvin Kamara to kind of maneuver away. But I mean, look. We're kind of in that weird stage where we're kind of transitioning from a Hall of Fame quarterback, and we're going to be in the salary cap hell for a while. So the Saints, if we win 9 of 10 games this year, that'll be a successful season for me.
Okay, cool. So I will talk about my Falcons, then I'll let you touch on the Bears real quick. I'm not expecting anything out of the Falcons. I'm expecting them to be better than they were last year in the close games. So if they have games close, which who knows if they even will this year, if they have games close, just do better. Just make better decisions.
Just do better.
I want to see how
it's like Steven's just patting them on the back. Just do better.
Just do better. Just do better. I want to see what the offense looks without Julio Jones for the first time in a really long time. What Kyle Pitts looks like.
Weird.
What Kyle Pitts looks like, obviously, and then the offense as a whole under Arthur Smith. Can Dean Pease make anything out of the defense with just no depth whatsoever? Like, once you get past the starters on the defensive line and the linebackers for Falcons, it's nobody. It's undrafted people. It's what are they going to do there? So just do better in the close games is all I'm looking for the Falcons.
Absolutely.
Now, Tyler, the Bears.
Da Bears.
I got to hear at least your take on the quarterback situation, and then you can go and tell me what you think about the game they have coming up against the Rams.
Right. So what do I think about the Bears? I'm hoping we get to see Justin Fields after Game 4 this year.
Okay.
After Game 4.
That's my prediction. After 4 games, I think they're going to say, okay, let's transition towards Justin Fields and let's step back on Andy Dalton. But, Andy Dalton's a good game manager. I'm also interested to see what we can get out of him, honestly. So these first 4 games are pivotal for the Bears this season. But I'm hoping for 8 wins this year. We'll see.
Okay.
Hopefully the defense can kind of carry.
So hover around 500.
Yeah, 500.
That's fair.
I'd be happy with that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Anything over 8 wins, I'd be surprised, to be honest with you. So, and they play the Rams this week. The Rams open up as 7.5-point favorites. The Rams, obviously, they return Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods healthy this year. They were kind of banged up last year in a way. And then also they have Matthew Stafford coming in. The addition of Matthew Stafford. I think Matthew Stafford.
Your old face in new place is Matthew Stafford.
I think he's gonna have a monster year.
I think so too.
He's gonna have a great year.
I think so too.
The guy's got all the potential in the world. He's got great arm talent. I mean, he just was not a good system fit over there in Detroit, honestly.
He carried that team half the time, and they just didn't put the right pieces around him. And I think he's just a very, very underrated quarterback. But since you talked about him, I will go ahead and say my Super Bowl pick will be the Rams.
Wow.
I think they get over the hump.
Really?
I think with Matthews,
you're way too early Super Bowl pick.
This is my
the Rams.
We're
to
all
win
making
it
way
or
too
just
early.
make it
To win it. We're gonna go with the Rams to win the Super Bowl.
Over the AFC champion, who you think will be?
I mean, until anybody proves me wrong, it's the Chiefs.
Okay.
Oh no. We'll go the Bills. You're
just going to be different? Just go.
Well, I have Josh Allen on my fantasy team, so the Bills.
Steve, it is very ironic that you say Rams and Bills because that was the Super Bowl that I would love to see. But I mean, this is the reality of what's going to happen. It's going to be the Chiefs and the Packers more than likely. It's going to be the Packers are going to come out of the NFC, the Chiefs are going to come out of the AFC, and Aaron Rodgers may repeat as MVP yet again. I think that this team might be the best team that Aaron Rodgers has had in quite some time in Green Bay. And look, he's going to have a lot to prove this year after all the comments and after all the
he won an MVP last year.
I'm talking about the headache he gave them during the offseason with this. Am I coming back? Am I not? Am I a part of this team? Am I not a part of this team? Like, what's going on with you? So I would say that now that the offensive line for the Chiefs are better, I think, like you said, until somebody proves me wrong, I'll say the Chiefs and the Packers get to the Super Bowl.
Okay, Tyler, what you got?
I think we get a Super Bowl rematch, and I think we get the
Bucs
Chiefs again.
Wow.
And the only reason I like your take on the Packers, but I just think the Bucs are just too good. I think this is Tom Brady's best team he's ever been with.
And hey, that's not a hot take. That may not be a hot take either.
No. You think about the weapons that Tom Brady has this year. They added Giovanni Bernard to that running back.
Yeah.
Giovanni Bernard.
I mean, the rich get richer.
That's right.
My goodness.
And on top of that, Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, just mentioned
their running backs
Bernard.
Stacked.
Yeah, stacked.
Oh, wow.
Now let's talk about how they have Rob Gronkowski, who's banged up last year, made it through 4 games. OJ Howard,
he's
and Cameron
just sitting
Brate.
behind Rob Gronkowski.
They've got a
depth
plethora of talent down there in Tampa Bay.
Absolutely.
You're going back to the Bills and Cowboys in the 90s, I believe. Weren't they the last time that 2 Super Bowl teams went back to back in the Super Bowl? I think Cowboys won both, right?
I think you're right. Yeah.
Right. I knew.
The
Bills didn't win.
I think the Bills and Cowboys might be the last time we had.
I think so too. So that's very interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. So let's move on to our Week 1 games coming up here that we want to preview, other than our own ones. So we have kind of Tom Brady's old team. We have Miami going to the Patriots. The Patriots are a 3-point favorite. You have a big Alabama game going on here with Tua versus Mac. So, I'm looking forward to see what Tua does in his second year. I think he got a lot of criticism last year. Most of it well-deserved. Obviously, coming back off that huge hip injury, they don't open up the offense for him. They give him the keys kind of early in the season after Fitzpatrick is doing well already. Weird transition there. So I think everybody's looking forward to see what he does in a full season.
Also, kind of a weird transition with the Mac, kind of transitioning from Cam, and then them all of a sudden just saying, "Yep, well, Cam's gone." So now it's clearly Mac's team.
Yeah,
so,
I think the Patriots are going to be much improved. They get a lot of people back from that COVID year last year. They had a lot of opt-outs, especially on defense, and you get a little bit better offensive weapons. You have N'Keal Harry there still. You have a little bit better offensive weapons. You have Damian Harris actually taking over the lead back role. Kind of more officially now for New England. So I think they're a much improved team. I think that the Patriots win mostly on home field advantage. That 3 points is really just a home field advantage line for Vegas anyways. But I think they win in Mac's first start.
So I partially agree with you. I think that Tua finally has had a full off season where it wasn't due to COVID and whatnot. He's looked polished all summer. And, he's had all this trade rumor talks with the Dolphins trading for Deshaun Watson. Are they going to? Do they like Tua? Is the locker room behind Tua? Are they not? And then, of course, he was trying to get over that injury, of course, last season. So that kind of hindered him from trying to improve during those OTAs and whatnot. And I think just combined with all that, I think Tua's going to come out and play with some driven motivation. Play relatively well. I think this is not going to be a very high-scoring game, but I do like the Fins to win in a close matchup over the Pats, 24-20. With the additions of Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle, I think that provides more big play opportunity for Tua that there wasn't there last year. There last year. I think he'll have that this year, and I think this will be a better Dolphins team with a defense that was already good, and I think Mac's going to have some of that rookie struggles as he has those first few games. He might be better by the end of the year, but, this is going to be his first real NFL game where he's going up against live first-team guys. So I think I like Tua just a little bit more than I do Mac in this game. So I'll take him 24.
As I'd say, it's not a game I feel super confident in, but I will go against you and go to Pats.
I wouldn't bet my life on it.
As I'd say, this is not one of those games where I'm like, you got to bet all your money on the Pats. Take Miami or anything like that. It's a very close game, I feel like. Tyler, what you got?
I think you could argue this is probably the hardest game to, bet.
It is to really pick. It is. It's hard.
They're both great teams, both well coached, great defenses, and potential for great offenses here in the near future. I'm gonna have to go with you, Cole. I think I'm leaning more towards Miami. A little bit more experience on Tua's hands. And, I kind of like the Dolphins' weapons a little bit more than the Patriots.
Yeah, I think so,
to
too.
be honest with you.
I think so, too.
Yeah. Hey, very fair, very fair. I will be the odd man out and take the Pats. I'll take the Pats.
We'll remember that for next show.
So we've got another big game, and I think this is more of a big game because a lot of people have them almost as a sleeper Super Bowl pick. We have the Browns at the Chiefs. A lot of people have the Browns being so much better, more improved, especially on defense. They went out and got a lot of people. I think they have 8 new starters on their defense.
Is this the part of the show where Steven tries to convince me that the Browns are going to go to the Super Bowl? Is this the part of the show?
I already gave you my Super Bowl pick.
Okay.
All
right. Well,
I
just want to make sure.
I
just want to make sure.
But you have obviously the Chiefs coming back with their revamped offensive line. They didn't really add any new weapons, but they have that new offensive line. And then as long as you have Patrick Mahomes, you're gonna be a Super Bowl pick. Who do you have in this game and why? I think you're going to see the Chiefs win by touchdown. So they cover, but man, I think the Browns are going to be much improved on defense this year.
This is an easy pick. The Chiefs are going to cover. I would say it lays somewhere around 34-20, 34-24. The Chiefs will win. Look, the Browns are much improved. The Jadeveon Clowney, acquisition is obviously huge for Cleveland. But, is that going to really take that? I trust Patrick Mahomes more than I do Baker Mayfield, and that's long-term. That's in one game. That's whenever. So I'll take the Chiefs to win. We're going to see what we're going to get from the Browns this year. But, I think it's going to be much of the same what we saw last year.
It's very fair. Tyler, what you got?
I think you got to go the Chiefs in this one. I think the Browns are going to be a little bit of a letdown. they made some good additions. Everybody's freaking out about Jadeveon Clowney. He's washed.
A lot of things played in their favor last year. I'm going to go ahead and say that.
They did that too. But I think the Chiefs are just going to come out and blow them out by at least 20 points.
Okay, so we have all of us picking against the people who are hyping the Browns up this offseason.
I don't believe the hype.
So let's move into another game that has potential for Aaron Rodgers, potential for the Saints coming in here. We have the Packers at the Saints. I think this is going to be a great game for the NFC. The Saints could be really, really good under Jameis Winston, so this could eventually decide kind of who the best team in the NFC is. It's in Tampa Bay because the Saints cannot play in New Orleans, obviously, because of the hurricane and everything like that.
Yep.
Green Bay is a 4-point favorite. Cole, I'm actually going to go with the take you had earlier, and I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers. Having kind of a revenge tour kind of thing going here. And I'm going to say he comes out hot to start the season, and they cover.
Yeah, this could be the best game for Week 1. It's going to be definitely interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored potentially. This is going to be Jameis's first real test as a starting quarterback for Saints, and it comes at Week 1. The defense is strong and can probably make some plays, and maybe if they make enough plays, they can try and slow Aaron Rodgers. You're not going to really stop Aaron Rodgers, but you might can slow him down a little bit. That starts with Alvin Kamara possessing the ball for the Saints, having a lot of possession time and whatnot, and keeping that defense on the sideline. But unfortunately, I mean, for my Saints, I'm going to take the Packers. I don't see any way that we're going to beat them. I think that this is going to be just one of those games where we just kind of try. If it was in the Superdome, in the Caesar Superdome, I may lean more towards the Saints, but I'm going to take the Packers 38-28 over the Saints.
What you got, Tyler?
So when the books opened on this, the Saints were 3-point underdogs in the Big Easy. When they moved to Jacksonville, it's moved to +4 now. I'm going to tease Tyler's picks a little later on, but I'll give you this stat. Aaron Rodgers, 4-1 indoors last year, throwing 17 touchdowns and 1 interceptions. I'll give you the rest of those stats later on.
All right.
So we'll pick that up later.
Okay, sweet. We'll pick that up later. So the last game that I want to touch on, not really good game, but I didn't want to touch on it because it is my Falcons. You have the Eagles going to the Falcons. Atlanta's a 3-point favorite. I think Atlanta wins. I think the Eagles might be one of the worst teams in the NFL this coming season.
Yes,
I think they just have a lot to work on. Obviously, the Falcons have a lot to work on too, but I think they come out firing in Arthur Smith's first game. I think you see some Kyle Pitts action going on here, showing off their number 3 overall pick, right? Yep. So I think you see that.
Was it number 3 or number 4? It might have been number 4. Maybe
it was one of those. It was top 5 pick. They're showing off their top 5 pick in Kyle Pitts a little bit here, and I think Atlanta wins this one semi easily.
So I agree with you. Much to my dismay, I have the Saints losing and the Falcons winning in Week 1. But yeah, I think that it's just going to be too much for the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles could be, like you said, the worst team in football. They might win maybe 3 games this year if you look on their schedule. I'll take Atlanta 27-23 over Philly. I think Matt Ryan in the offense does just enough, and for once, they come in the clutch. I think that they've put a team away and keep them away. So I'll take Atlanta.
What you got, Tyler?
I'm gonna take the Eagles on the road. The 3.5 point.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Okay.
I'll believe it when I see Atlanta's defense, but I do not see that. They just can't stop anybody. They cannot stop anybody.
So the second half of the season last year, they had a much better. They were closer to top 15 than they were bottom 15. I mean, obviously, at the beginning of the year, they were bottom.
I'll be interested to see how much better
2.
Jalen Hurts is with Devontae Smith as his receiver. I'll be interested to see how
I think Dean Pease will make a little bit of a difference here, too, coming out of retirement to coach up the Falcons defense. Tyler, I know you already touched it, but I just want to get your pick really quick. Bears at Rams. I'm going to take Rams -7.5. What you got, Cole?
Oh, I got the Rams over the Bears, 31-17. I just think the Rams are just too much. They're just too much more talented than the Chicago Bears are.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, this was an easy one for me. I'm going to say Rams 40-17.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Just too good. Too good.
Awesome. So we're all on the same page there. So next week, I think we're running low on time here a little bit. So next week we're going to tease. I'm going to tease fantasy football. We are going to get into our picks and who we like, what sleepers we like. Obviously, we'll have a week to kind of see how we think about it from this week. But we will go for that, and we'll go, our top 5 picks that aren't the obvious ones and everything like that. Who we want on our team, who we must have on our team, things like that. So Cole, you already did your doghouse.
I did.
So we'll skip over you. We will go to my stat of the day. We will go back to college football for my stat of the day. So Penn State's win over Wisconsin was James Franklin's first road win against an AP top 15 team in his career.
Wow.
He was 0-12 before Saturday.
Wow.
Penn State has now won each of the last 5 meetings with Wisconsin. That's the longest streak by either team in series history. Wisconsin has now lost 6 consecutive games against ranked opponents.
Hey, what
Just
did I
ranked.
say last week? I said that the game meant more to Penn State than it did Wisconsin. And I
you
think
were right.
it meant a lot to James Franklin. And just from your stats, I mean, you can see why it meant so much to him. His first real legit win.
Cole, you were right. You were right. I was wrong. I thought Camp Randall
You thought it would be enough.
I thought a season without fans, Camp Randall playing jump around, all those fans going hike would be enough to put Wisconsin over the top. It wasn't. The final stat, I get
Lions.
giving you 3 here, but the final stat I just thought it was interesting. It's got to be frustrating for everybody. Nick Saban is the first coach to win 80 games in ranked matchups during the AP poll era, which the AP poll
That's
era.
impressive.
AP poll era started.
Can we just take a minute and just appreciate Nick Saban? I mean really, we all just take it for granted that Alabama's going to go out there and win. But I mean, what we are witnessing each Saturday is just nothing short of remarkable. I mean, to just win a national title like you did and then show up the next season and just win like you did against a team that is claimed to be in the top 25 is just remarkable. And the level of dominance and the level he has mastered this sport is just something we'll never see again. Probably.
Yeah. You talk about Bobby Bowden passing away, and you kind of you think about his record with those 14 straight, I think like top 5 finishes, 10 win seasons is what it was. It was 10 win seasons, and you have nobody thinking that could ever be done. You have Nick Saban coming along, so everybody's gonna say it can never be done again. But who knows? Maybe we'll have another Nick Saban coming a few decades later.
Conversation
Cole,
for another day.
I mean, Tyler, not Cole. You already did yours. Tyler, give me your Galen picks. I want to know what to pick because I struggled last week.
He was 2-0 this week, ladies
He
and
did.
gentlemen. 2-0.
You know what? It was because you did not listen to my picks,
That's true.
Steven,
That's
so-
true. I went with my own, and it did not work out for me. So what you got?
Like Steven just mentioned, we went 2-0 on my bets last week on Tyler's picks, 5-1 overall in college football. In my Tyler's picks last week, we saw Army curb stomp Georgia State. They beat them 44-10 as 3.5-point underdogs was Army. So huge win, huge money line
Absolutely.
win there.
Yes,
And
sir.
also huge money line win. Utah State 16-point underdogs pulling the upset against Washington State 26.
And we called it here
and
first.
We called it. Guys, are you ready?
Give it to
my
me.
picks
I'm
this
ready,
week?
Tyler.
I'm ready.
I'm gonna give you one
Edge of my
college
seat.
football.
I'm writing
and
them down.
one NFL.
Writing them
We're
down.
ready.
All right, we'll start with college football this week. I am going to roll with Army again. The Black Knights.
again.
The Black Knights to cover the spread against Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. Army is favored by 4.5 points this week, guys. And as we saw last week, the Army offense notched 258 yards on the ground, but it was the defense that made the biggest impact for the Black Knights, holding Georgia State to only 48 yards rushing and 129 yards in the air. The Black Knights, they're going to do it again this week, guys. I'm
They're
telling you.
going to do it again.
Back them up. And then my NFL pick for this week, we teased it earlier. My NFL bet for this week, or I teased the Packers and the Saints earlier. That's going to be a little bonus pick for this week. But this NFL bet, it's kind of an upset, but I'm going to roll with the Washington football team in a pick 'em against the Los Angeles Chargers.
Okay.
I like it.
Washington is currently a 1-point underdog. And I always like going against the public because Vegas knows what they're doing, clearly, right?
It's true.
Oh, yeah,
And
for sure. Especially with the NFL.
The,
Except
Chargers,
for-
the Chargers are getting 64% of the public's love on the spread. Los Angeles, they're playing 1 o'clock Eastern time on the East Coast in Washington, which is 10 a.m. Pacific time. So look out for a little lag
So
there,
maybe
guys.
maybe still a little sleepy-eyed.
Here we go.
The
Exactly.
Chargers.
Here we go.
Okay.
So
Here we go.
I expect the
You
Chargers
get this kind of research right here, guys. right
right here,
here.
only on Under Review.
Only on the review. Right here.
Expect the Chargers to get off to a slow start, guys, and against a great defense in Washington.
Yeah.
Last year they finished number 3 overall in total defense, number 2 in passing defense, and only allowing 191 yards through the air average every game last year. Guys, I like Washington in this one in a low-scoring game. I think Fitzpatrick gets the job done this week.
Okay.
And I mentioned last part right here, the bonus pick. Watch out for the
Ooh.
Saints this week, guys. Aaron Rodgers,
hope
3 and
you're right,
4
Tyler.
all time in the state of Florida. It's going to be a hot one down there. We'll see how it goes.
I hope you're right, Tyler. So we got Army, We've got Washington football team and maybe a little bonus pick taking the Saints and the line, I guess. Not to win, but just to cover the points.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're clear. Hey,
Awesome.
what a great show, guys.
Great show.
What a great show.
Great show. We crammed it all in. We had a lot to talk about, and we somehow fit it all in.
If you've stuck around to this point, we appreciate you being here and being on part of the live stream. If you're tuning in on the podcast, we appreciate you as well. Tuning in wherever you get your podcast app. Steven, take us to the end.
Well, guys, every week we are going to try to be live on Wednesdays at 6:25. Live on Wednesdays at 6:25. It rhymes. You can remember it. Let's go, people. So we're going to be live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch every Wednesday at 6:25. You can also listen to the podcast. If you can't see us live, you can listen to us and feel like you are here live. And you can listen to us on Apple, on Spotify. We're on Anchor. Pretty much anywhere you get your podcast, you can listen to us. And please, guys, tune in and check us out on social media. On Instagram, we're Under Review 24/7. Twitter, Under Review 24/7. Facebook, just Under Review. Under Review on YouTube. Just check us out wherever you can find us, and we will be there.
God bless you guys. God bless America.